My mother-in-law kicked me out of her house the moment she found out I planned to give birth at my parents' home. She physically threw me out while I was still in my pajamas, refusing to let me put on shoes or even grab a jacket. With just my phone in hand, I called my mom, who was nearby. I ended up waiting for her at a local diner. When my mom and sister learned what had happened, they were furious and quickly made plans that would soon bring trouble for my mother-in-law and my husband. I'm Emma, 29 years old. I married Jerry, 31, a year ago. His father is the owner of a large company, and Jerry is being groomed to become the next CEO. Currently, he's getting experience at one of the smaller branches. We met at work, and I had no idea about his family's business empire until just before our wedding. His revelation that he was in line to take over as CEO completely surprised me. He was so confident and well-liked that once he explained, everything clicked, and suddenly I found myself as the wife of a future CEO. After our wedding, Jerry moved to the main office, while I continued my job. My father-in-law seemed supportive, saying, "I've heard you're a young leader at your workplace. Keep up the good work." But my mother-in-law had a different perspective, questioning why a wife would prioritize work over her home. She strongly opposed my job, and I thought that living separately from Jerry's parents would keep the peace, but then they insisted we live together, and that's when the real problems began. My father-in-law mentioned how busy he was and suggested it would be helpful to have someone around to manage the household. Jerry agreed, saying, "I'm worried about Mom. I've always lived here. Moving now just wouldn't work for me." With that, I found myself cornered and reluctantly agreed to move in with my in-laws. Living under one roof brought a wave of challenges. My mother-in-law, who had already disapproved of my job, made my daily life difficult, insisting I quit and take on all the household chores while I worked full-time. If she spotted any imperfection in my cleaning, like a speck of dust or a stray hair, she demanded I redo it. I initially tried to respond positively, cleaning more thoroughly, but her scrutiny escalated to checking behind the TV or between dressers, which felt excessive. Eventually, I decided to stand my ground. I can't clean those areas every day. I work just like Jerry. I'll do a thorough clean on weekends, so there's no need to redo everything today, right? My mother-in-law's response was furious. "How dare you talk back to me like that?" she shouted, and in her anger, she called Jerry, falsely accusing me of yelling and twisting my words into something confrontational, complete with tears for effect. I hoped Jerry would see reason and defend me. "Mom, Emma is working too. Maybe you could be a bit more understanding," I thought he might say. Instead, he disappointed me. "Why did you upset Mom like that? She was just trying to help," he said, siding with her. This response highlighted the stark contrast in expectations and support within our family. "Why are you getting upset?" Jerry admonished me, firmly taking his mother's side. At that moment, I realized that the only person I might rely on in that household was my father-in-law, but his frequent absences left me navigating the tension alone. I quickly learned that standing up to my mother-in-law led to arguments that left me feeling defeated, as she would inevitably complain to Jerry, who offered no support. To avoid conflict, I adopted a quieter demeanor, believing it was the only way to maintain some semblance of peace. This strategy worked for a year until health issues prompted me to visit the doctor. The diagnosis wasn't just an illness. I was pregnant, hopeful yet anxious about how my family would react. I decided to share the news with Jerry first. "You know how I've been feeling unwell lately? Well, I went to the doctor, and guess what? I'm pregnant," I said. "That's fantastic. So I'm going to be a dad." "Huh? I can't wait. Do we know the gender yet?" he responded, his excitement palpable. "Not yet. Does it matter to you?" I asked, sensing his underlying expectations. "Of course it matters. It has to be a boy," he declared. As an only child, it seemed crucial to him that we have a son to continue the family legacy. "What if it's a girl?" I wondered aloud, worried about how this might affect our family dynamics. "Don't worry, I'm sure it's a boy," he reassured me, though I remained unconvinced. We agreed to wait until we knew the baby's gender before informing his parents. When we found out we were having a girl, I was overjoyed and determined not to fall into any gender biases. Jerry, however, was less than enthusiastic. "A girl? Are you sure? Can you get it checked again?" he asked, disappointment evident in his tone. His reaction left me feeling anxious about how my mother-in-law would respond. Despite his initial letdown, I dreaded the impending conversation with her, uncertain about how we would navigate the challenges ahead. Eventually, we realized we could no longer keep the pregnancy a secret from the in-laws. I gently nudged Jerry to break the news. "Well, I'm pregnant," he told them. My father-in-law's face lit up with genuine joy. "That's wonderful, Emma. We're finally going to have our first grandchild," he exclaimed. However, my mother-in-law's response was immediate and pointed. "So, what's the gender?" she asked, hesitation creeping into her voice. "It's a girl," I replied. "A girl, huh? I hope she's as lovely as you, Emma," my father-in-law said warmly, clearly unconcerned about the gender, but my mother-in-law's disappointment was palpable. "A girl, not a boy? It has to be a boy to make sense for Jerry," she muttered under her breath. I was taken aback by her reaction, but before the tension could escalate, my father-in-law intervened. "Honey, Why would you say that? Whether it's a boy or a girl, they're still our grandchild. Can't you just be happy? He chided gently. She fell silent after his reprimand, but I sensed her mood would shift again soon. True to my instincts, as soon as my father-in-law left for work the next day, she confronted me. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can slack off on the housework. You're not planning to quit your job, are you? If not, keep up with your chores. Pregnancy isn't an illness, you know. Hearing these words from another woman, especially one who had experienced pregnancy herself, was startling. It made me reconsider whether staying here was truly the best choice for my child. My family home was about a 4-hour train ride away. Since my dad passed away early, my mom and older sister had been living there together. Perhaps if I shared everything with them, they would welcome me back. I began to feel that giving birth at my in-laws' place might not be the safest or most supportive option. I remembered how my family's home could offer a more nurturing environment, and I decided to call my mom immediately. "Mom, it's me, Emma. What's up?" "It's rare for you to call," she replied. "What's going on?" "I'm pregnant, and I was thinking, could I come home to give birth?" "You're pregnant? You should have told us sooner. Congratulations. Of course you can come home for the delivery, but have you talked this over with your in-laws yet?" "Not yet," I admitted. "Make sure to discuss it properly with them. If they agree, then I see no issue at all," Mom advised, emphasizing the importance of clear communication for the well-being of my baby. Encouraged by my mom's support, I felt a sense of hope for what lay ahead. I decided it was time to talk to my husband about my plan. "I'm thinking of going home for the birth," I said casually. "Oh, going home for the birth? I guess that's fine," he replied nonchalantly. "My mom's here, so things should be okay around the house." His quick agreement surprised me, but knowing my mother-in-law might resist, I turned to my father-in-law for support. After considering it for a moment, I approached him. "I think it might be best for everyone if I went home for the delivery. Would that be all right?" He seemed taken aback at first, but then he reassured me. "If that's what you want, Emma, then it's probably the best decision. I won't oppose it. Could you perhaps speak to your wife on my behalf?" I asked hesitantly. "I'll tell her," he promised, appearing supportive of my choice. With his backing, I felt confident that I could go home for the delivery without any issues. However, on the morning I was set to leave, I woke up to find my packed luggage missing. My heart sank as both Jerry and my father-in-law had already left for work, leaving me no choice but to confront my mother-in-law. "Do you know where my luggage is?" I asked, hesitating before the words came out. "Oh, that luggage? I got rid of it," she snapped. "I don't need a daughter-in-law who causes so much trouble. Don't ever come back," she shouted, her voice dripping with hostility. Stunned by her harsh dismissal, I realized that returning to my family was no longer just a preference. It had become a necessity for my peace and safety. As she shoved me out the front door, I barely had time to react. I hadn't even slipped on my shoes, still dressed in my pajamas, with only my smartphone in hand. The sound of the door locking behind me was a clear message from my mother-in-law. She wanted me gone, and she meant it. The thought struck me hard. If I lingered, that door might never open for me again. With that realization weighing on me, I turned to leave, but the summer heat made walking barefoot almost unbearable. I sought refuge in a nearby diner, where I used my only possession, my phone, to call my mom. She was furious about the situation and promised to arrive within an hour. Luckily, she wasn't far away. I spent that anxious hour in the diner, waiting for her. When she arrived, she wasted no time and drove me straight back to our family home, where my sister was already waiting. I shared everything, the harsh actions of my mother-in-law and the indifference I felt from my husband. My mom and sister exchanged quiet words, their whispers leaving me curious about what they were discussing. The next morning, being back at my family home felt like a breath of fresh air. When I stepped outside to fetch the newspaper, I was met with an unexpected sight. My mother-in-law and husband were kneeling on the doorstep. "Emma, I'm so sorry. It was all my fault. Please don't sever ties with my husband's company," my mother-in-law pleaded. "Emma, I'm sorry too. Can we continue doing business with my dad's company?" my husband added, regret evident in his voice. Confused, I had no idea what they were talking about. Suddenly, my mom and sister appeared behind me. "What on earth are you two doing causing a scene this early?" my mom asked sternly, her voice slicing through the morning air. "What does resuming business mean?" she pressed, eager to understand their sudden change of heart. To avoid any further disturbance, my mom invited them inside. The atmosphere was tense, filled with unspoken questions as we all stepped back into the house. Once everyone was seated, my husband began to plead his case. "Would you please consider doing business again with my dad's company?" he asked. My mom and sister, who managed the company my late father had left behind, listened intently, curious about the details. I turned to my mom. "What does it mean that they're doing business with my father-in-law's company?" "Yes, they work with one of their subsidiary companies," my mom explained. "It's a major company within their group, second only to the main office, and their top client is your mom's company," my husband added, looking at me. This revelation took me by surprise, and apparently, it surprised my husband too. I chuckled softly. That's news to me as well. As I thought back, I remembered my in-laws mentioning their long-standing mutual indebtedness when they first met. However, the warmth of nostalgia quickly faded when my mom interjected with firm resolve. I cannot continue doing business with a family that would send my daughter away in such a state with only her phone. I'm halting our business dealings, she declared. My mother-in-law, visibly shaken by this pronouncement, pleaded desperately, please, I beg you, I'll do anything. Can you reconsider stopping the dealings with my husband's company? At that moment, my sister, with a knowing smirk, chimed in. You said you'd do anything, right? So you'll agree to Emma's divorce, and naturally, you'll pay alimony and child support, right? Her words echoed in my mind. Just the day before, I had spoken to my husband about the situation, and his response had been dismissive. It's what you deserve, isn't it? He had said coldly. That callous remark only solidified my decision. I found myself silently agreeing with my mom. Any affection I had left for my husband had vanished. I would have suggested divorce myself if my sister hadn't made the point so effectively. Thanks to her well-timed comment, the dynamics of the conversation shifted decisively in our favor. My mother-in-law, though reluctant, finally asked, even if it means agreeing to a divorce, will you resume business with my husband's company? With a knowing smirk, my mom pulled out her phone and made a call. It seems this lady agrees to my daughter's divorce. She spoke clearly into the receiver. My father-in-law's voice crackled through. Got it. Hey, Maria, I'm divorcing you and Jerry. You're fired. Those were the drastic terms he set for resuming business. My mom added firmly, I cannot forgive the two of you for how you treated Emma. You both deserve to face the consequences. This unexpected turn of events led to my mother-in-law losing her husband and my husband losing his job, income, and familial support. The fallout continued with a bitter divorce between my in-laws, expertly managed by a top-notch lawyer from my father-in-law's side. During the proceedings, assets were divided, resulting in my mother-in-law paying a significant sum to my husband and me. I, too, initiated my divorce. Living with a husband so heavily influenced by his mother was no longer an option for me. I received compensation for the emotional distress inflicted by both my mother-in-law and husband, as well as child support for our unborn child. The financial strain became so overwhelming for them that they had to tap into their savings and ultimately take on debt. Under the weight of my father-in-law's influence and my mom's resolve, my now ex-husband found it increasingly difficult to secure a job in his previous field. He ultimately had to switch careers, moving into customer service, a significant and humbling change that underscored the profound consequences of the family turmoil. However, he underestimated his new role and soon faced numerous complaints, leading to a swift termination. Now, he's living with his mother, barely scraping by with daily wage jobs. My mother-in-law and ex-husband, once accustomed to a lavish lifestyle thanks to my father-in-law's generosity, now reside in a cramped one-bedroom apartment. Their relationship, once close, has soured, and they argue frequently. I sometimes wonder if there's any hope or joy left in their lives. Meanwhile, I safely gave birth at home to a healthy baby girl, surrounded by the unwavering support of my mom and sister. As things settle down, I'm planning to join my mom's company, looking forward to a fresh start in my professional life. I did inform my ex-husband about our daughter's birth, but he hasn't followed up, showing little interest. All I expect from him is to fulfill his child support obligations. I have no intention of allowing him to be part of our daughter's life. From now on, my focus is on moving forward and building a fulfilling life with my daughter, supported by the love and strength of my family.